Hey, welcome to this edition of the Rough 'em Up podcast. I am the A-Train Arlington Lane. Joining me as always is my co-host, Cullen Mr. Roughneck Watkins. What's going on today, sir?
Just here to discuss more Houston Roughnecks football with you as usual. I've been having a blast doing this every single week, and this is a good week of discussion because there's a lot of moving parts now going on, not only with the Roughnecks, but with the league as a whole. Yeah, This should be a good one, folks. This should be a good one.
Let's start with the Roughnecks themselves. They took a defeat last night. I should say Monday night, 37-26. My goodness. A lot of penalties were called against the Roughnecks, and some of them were just blatant, and others were like just questionable. But they only lost by 11 points. It did seem like it was going to be surmountable at some point. We did see a change at the quarterback position a bit longer this time. Brandon Silvers had to take a seat. Cole McDonald came in and was 8 of 11 for 194 and a touchdown, which included an 85-yard touchdown to Deontay Burnett. Of course, no Jonte Kirkland. And they had a 37-26 defeat, but there was some promising things that we saw. What did you see, Cullen?
Yeah, so of course, well, first of all, the DC Defenders, they moved to 6-0 now. They're just a really good team. But Arlington, I like what you said about the positives that are taken away from this because, yeah, we lost. But, besides the penalties, it was a pretty solid game. Of course, the defense sort of got cooked a little bit, but that's just going to happen when you play a really good offense such as DC with Teamu looking really good out there. I feel like we haven't seen this level of Jordan Teamu since 2020, the Battlehawks. It's nice to see him back. But when we talk about positives, Cole McDonald.
Yeah.
Cole McDonald, 8 for 11, 194 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 37 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. I am super excited for Cole McDonald because I believe, and even watching the press conference after the game, it sort of looks like Cole McDonald's going to be starting against St. Louis when we play. It would be this Sunday. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, Arlington, as well. But before I ask your thoughts on it, our wide receiving was pretty good too. Deontay Burnett, 4 receptions, 122 yards, 1 touchdown. I feel like that wasn't really the issue this game. We've had some guys step up for Jonte Kirkland, and that's the last podcast we talked about. We needed those guys to step up, and they did. So, our defense needed to get better, but our penalties killed us. 8 first downs caused by penalties, 12 penalties in total against the Roughnecks. Hard to win football games when you have that.
And that is all true, especially the major. There were 2 major penalties. One I thought was silly, but we never got proof on it. The other one was just like, dude, come on, man. Like, really? Of course, that's Jack Heflin. I'm talking about Jack Heflin getting tossed for a low blow. So I would love to see how the league, haven't seen of this recording, but see what the league does about that. If they penalize him or suspend him or fine him or whatever, because of course that can't be allowed. And you've got to send a message to these guys. Like, you can't just sit here and just do that and think that you just got penalized for it. Now he may not, and only time will tell. And we'll let you know at Rough 'em Up podcast on REU podcast on REU podcast on Twitter, and let you know what the status of that when it comes to fruition. Also, the Gene Harris penalty. I'm still trying to figure that one out myself. Like, he squirted water. The ref says he squirted water on him. I need some proof. You got all these cameras in this venue, and it wasn't shown. So, and Gene Harris himself, if you could hear in the playback, was saying, I'm just getting off the field. So I'll just take a water bottle and just stay there and squirt it at him. So I'm like, it's a he said. So it's interesting to see how that one is going to play out. because I didn't see anything. Did you see anything from that?
No, and to be completely honest, I feel like this week for the XFL as a whole, we talked about it on the X Fan show. It was sort of a rough week when it came to XFL officiating, with Dan Blandino with the Orlando game admitting he was wrong on that one offsides call or whatever, and then this game you had all of these penalties. Some were like understandable, others, like you said, we need to see the proof. It's a league of transparency. We didn't see that really for some of those calls for the game against the DC Defenders. So I'm a little disappointed this week in the XFL. But I guess, and even Wade Phillips said it in the press conference, you can try to blame the refs and stuff, but at the end of the day, 12 penalties, you still messed up a lot. The 12 penalties that's rough.
Yeah, and a part of me is like, I believe that Wade said it, but I don't believe he feels that way.
Yeah, more of a PR move.
You did that for XFL purposes.
Yeah,
I'm just here so I don't get fined. That type of stuff, right? But because there was a lot. I don't know if you get a chance to go back and watch it. It's on demand. There was a lot of moments during the game where Wade Phillips was looking like this. And that's what kind of threw up, it was like, and he was like, what do I do? What do I do? Like, he's going to his group in the booth saying, should I challenge? And that happened frequently in the third and fourth quarters of the game. Should I challenge? Should I challenge? Should I challenge? And they were like, no. And I understand the point of the challenge is to utilize it when, but I think there should be a second one for every team in the league. I think there should be 2 challenges. You can use one. You can use one for any play, and then you can use the challenge for that play at that moment. That's just my opinion on that. Because if you're sure about it, you just go ahead and use it. And then you can use the other challenge. And make sure you let the refs know, okay, I'm using it for a play right here, or I'm using it for a play. Something went out, during the game. Mm-hmm. That may be confusing, but hey, I think a second challenge should be used for that.
That's an interesting point. That is an interesting point. And it would have helped in this game. Rushing wise, though, I want to talk about the rushing attack. Max Borgi, 2 touchdowns. I feel like we used them a lot at sort of the goal line. I really would have liked to see a little more chances. I feel like we have a really good running back room that wasn't really used as much as I would have liked this game. But I guess when you have Cole McDonald doing what he was doing when he was in, you don't really need to rely on those guys as much. But I just can't get over the fact that Cole McDonald, spectacular performance when we needed him most.
Yeah, and definitely brought the spark back into the Roughneck offense. Brandon Silvers just had a hard time getting the ball down the field. 10 of 17, 111 yards and an interception. Just had a hard time. Whereas with Cole McDonald, you kind of switch things up a bit. He can move in the pocket, move out of the pocket. He can take off when needed. Like even the one play where I think it was Tom Luganbill on the ESPN telecast saying that was a dangerous throw off his back foot, but the play was still made. Mm-hmm. That was a 30-yard reception to Harris.
Yep.
So Travell Harris. So even with that being said, it still shows that Cole McDonald can get the job done if you give him some more reps. And him getting those reps gives him confidence. Even though they lost, it gave confidence to not just himself. It gave it to AJ Smith and Wade Phillips to say, hey, you can use me in the game. I have the arm. I can do it. You saw it with the 85-yard touchdown to Deontay Burnett. And you saw what I can do with my legs. I can probably help put some wins together. And that's what's going to be utilized for the next matchup they got against St. Louis.
Mm-hmm. I hope so, at least. When looking at Brandon Silvers and Cole McDonald, of course, y'all know I'm a big Brandon Silvers fan. I have been ever since we drafted him. I've been rooting for him. But we sort of knew going in that Cole McDonald, he's way more of an athlete than Brandon Silvers is. Way, way more of an athlete. You see it in the rushing yards, and even A-Train, that play you were talking about, that back foot throw. If Brandon Silvers was in that position, it probably would have been a sack. You know, that's the way I look at it. But McDonald able to use his feet and make a play out of it. That's the difference maker between the two. Now, sure, Brandon Silvers to this point in the season, was he the safer option? Yes, he was a safer option. But I think we're at the point now, you're coming off of 2 losses. The Southern Division race is sure getting a little tighter. That could be debated, whatever. But the point is, Cole McDonald seems like when he's on his game, he's a better quarterback than Brandon Silvers when he's on his game. So I really, really, really hope, I'm praying to God that when we play the St. Louis Battlehawks, Cole McDonald is taking that first snap for this team, because I want to see more. I got hooked. I want to see more of that.
Hey, and that's my hometown, to facing off against St. Louis. But I'm looking at a matchup here where it's AJ McCarron against whoever decides to be the quarterback for Houston. And that's how that's going to get looked at. But like you said, Cole McDonald gave flashes, and Cole McDonald can sit back and be like, hey, I got some confidence. I'm ready to take on as QB1, and I think I can get the job done. And then we're at home. So it's only going to be a few hours down the road for both of them. They can take a bus to get to the game this time, right? They ain't got to take a flight. But my point is that this go round, I would love to see McDonald out there as well.
Yes.
And just keeping Brandon Silvers as backup play to be ready just in case it just goes south.
Mm-hmm.
But you're dealing with a Battlehawks defense that had 4 sacks. Granted, it was against Vegas. So having Cole McDonald out there will make it a little bit more difficult for them to chase down a guy like a Cole McDonald. They've had some issues with mobile quarterbacks. They couldn't get to Ben DiNucci, even though they won. I think they got him maybe one or 2 times, but still it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. And I think that's the game plan that AJ Smith should go for, is to utilize Cole McDonald in this case against this type of this type of defense. And then you had Lavert Hill with the 2 interceptions. So he's going to be lurking a bit against the Roughnecks. So McDonald makes sense here. You want to get back into the winning side here. And so you want to do whatever it takes to get a dub. And McDonald would be the best option to start with Silvers as the backup.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that's what they go for this week.
Yeah, no doubt. Because with Brandon Silvers, you know what you're getting. It's either going to be a little handoff to Max Borgi or Bryson Allen, or it's going to be a throw downfield. Cole McDonald, he can run, he can throw, he can hand it off. It just opens up so many more paths. And I know just on Twitter and Instagram, everyone else was agreeing with us. Give Cole McDonald the start, and I think it was either like the last podcast or the one before that. I was saying give Brandon Silvers a little more chance. It was just one bad game, but we're at the point now. It's decision time. We're at the point of no return. You need to win these games now, especially when you have San Antonio and Arlington coming up after this matchup with St. Louis. You got to win those games. You got to win those Southern Division games, because that race is tight right now, right? Our defense against St. Louis. Mm-hmm. What are you expecting? Because I know AJ McCarron, I like him. He's a solid quarterback. Is this doable for this Roughnecks defense? Because these past 2 games, especially the one against DC, that was a rough game for our defense. Do you expect a bounce back?
They were only able to get a sack in this one, but I think they can get a few more, a couple more sacks in this game. Having a guy like a Gene Harris or Will Likely coming in to play here and causing confusion for AJ, AJ would be key. Also, Emmanuel Ellerbe and Trent Harris. I'm looking at those two guys to cause disruption for AJ McCarron, because if you can get, like, lately, and I know it was Vegas, but the line was able to maintain throughout that game, and he was able to only get 6 incompletions in that game when he had 19 straight at one point. I don't think that will be the case here, because it's all about disruption and throwing him off. And Brian Stewart has done a great job with this defense. Granted, the last 2 games wasn't the best, but they were able to bring down Seattle's defense. Only have them score 21 points. They even had 4 turnovers themselves. They were able to commit that Seattle committed. But also in this game, it was just difficult because that offensive line was stacked. It's hard to get through. And so they won't, it's in the middle between DC and Seattle. You know what I mean? So it's going to be hard to stop an AJ McCarron, but also you can make it easier for yourself to just get through those lines, man. Like, listen, it's all about that front 7 for them.
Mm-hmm. And with DC, I know we're a Roughnecks podcast, but we got to give credit to DC. They are literally, the team is a perfect storm for a great spring football team. You got the O-line, then you got Jordan Ta'amu, and even Derek King. They are so mobile, and they can make throws on the run. They can just make plays with their feet. And then you got Abram Smith. My God, right now, my pick for MVP based on these past 2 performances, especially like the over 200 rushing yard performance. We'll see if he can keep it up, of course. But back to St. Louis, the St. Louis receiving corps, Hakeem Butler, Austin Proehl. I like our secondary's chances against this wide receiving corps. I do. Hakeem Butler, yeah, he's tall and he's big. I think the Seattle game, we played against a much tougher receiving corps than what the St. Louis game is going to be.
Keep in mind though, more receivers are being utilized in this Battlehawks offense.
Mm-hmm. Which you love to see.
Of course, Darius Shepard, who had 2 touchdowns. George Campbell is starting to get more reps. Also, Stephen Mitchell is getting a few opportunities. And even though he didn't get any catches in the game, Jake Sutherland, you got to look out for him too, because there are times where tight ends are being utilized. And I know it's not happening a lot in this league. I think the only team that's really utilizing it a lot is Orlando, because that's what they have. Cody Latimer is their athlete. Of course, you got Charleston Rambo. But my point is that even though the receiver corps may not be like Seattle, they're still effective. You got to think of the George Campbells and the Stephen Mitchells. You got to make sure that they kept in check too. So it seems like it's going to be easier, but it still can be a bit difficult if you're not careful, because Mitchell can go down the field, so can Campbell. Campbell can come across, right? Darius Shepard make out routes, or he can just go out. So that's what you have to look forward to seeing with this Battlehawks receiver corps. Butler is the big, tall guy, and they're going to try to utilize him a lot because they want to get the ball down the field. He cut across the middle, and he can make the jump catches if need be. So being at 6'6". So it seems like it's easier, but it's just as difficult after they were playing against the other receiving corps. They had a hard time against Lucky Jackson. That's because they were being so deceptive. The defenders were being so deceptive that you didn't know when they were going to utilize Lucky Jackson.
Yeah, Lucky Jackson had a huge game. And you called it too, I believe. You said watch out for a guy like Lucky Jackson. And sure enough, he had a great game, over 100 receiving yards. And too, with St. Louis, Brian Hill, running back. We've seen him have some pretty good games. I believe he didn't have the best game against Vegas, but that's because the passing attack was just there for St. Louis. But Brian Hill too, that's also going to be another guy to look out for. But going just overall matchup wise, It's St. Louis, I feel like right now is being a little overlooked by, of course, in the North at least, by a undefeated DC team and a hot Seattle team. I still think, I said it on the X-Fan show, I know you remember A-Train, I still think in the North, it's going to be DC and St. Louis in the playoffs. I'm riding high on St. Louis. So this matchup, it's not going to be easy whatsoever. This is still a solid, very solid Northern Division opponent, and we haven't beat a Northern Division opponent yet, but we are at home. Hopefully that comes into play. But, for those who are planning on watching the game, it's not going to be an easy game by any means. The days of playing the Guardians or the Brahmas or the Renegades, those are games I expect us to win, especially now. But St. Louis, solid team, playoff level team. I hope we can execute. We got to execute. We cannot lose 3 in a row. That would be terrible.
Of course it would be, because a lot of people picked Houston to win the XFL championship.
Mm-hmm.
They were high at the beginning of the season. Well, DC was over them, but and they're showing it. They're showing it why they're the favorite. And Houston was right behind them. And they still are second. But like you said, they've had a hard time against the North Division. And just because Vegas hasn't won doesn't mean that they can still knock off Houston.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the last 2 games that are at home are going to be featured against Northern Division opponents. We need everybody to come out, especially for this game on Sunday, because this is a big one. And if you can't be there, make sure you watch it on ESPN at 1:00 Central Time, because this is a big one. Because it has implications not just for the North, but also for the South.
Mm-hmm.
Because a loss for the Roughnecks and a win for the Renegades makes them at a virtual tie.
Yep.
And even though at the time it will be the Roughnecks that'll have the tiebreaker, it still makes that division even more compelling. Mm-hmm. So they need a win against the Battlehawks this week. I'm actually torn, man. I know I'm torn this week. Like, this is bad for me. Like, I'm looking forward to this game, but I'm like, a part of me is like, if the Battlehawks win, this looks good for them. But again, it wants to look good for Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Houston gotta get this win if they want to, keep the distance away from Arlington. So you gotta get a win. Gotta minimize the mistakes. You can't let these refs, tear you apart, man, because penalties really killed that game against DC. Mm-hmm. And I think they would have had a fighting chance if they didn't have all these flags from now. They'd have been the most penalized team this past week.
Mm-hmm.
Over Orlando at that.
I know, that's saying something.
They had over 100 yards in penalties. That kills it. That can kill drives. So got to be smart this week. And you're going against a team that's hungry, and they want to showcase that they're better than what people
mm-hmm.
claim.
Yeah.
So that in mind.
Yes, because St. Louis, I've liked them pretty much the whole year. They look really good. They're just a solid team. I think Coach Beck is doing a great job with them. But before we end it here, looking at the rest of the Roughnecks schedule, I like what you were saying about Arlington, and we can maybe even talk about San Antonio here. We're going to play each of those teams one more time. These games against Vegas and St. Louis, for people need to realize, if we lose either of those games, that San Antonio game, that Arlington game has that much more implicated on it, because now we're talking straight up South records, and I know for a fact, I know everyone knows for a fact, Houston is the best team in the South. There should be no excuse whatsoever that the Roughnecks finish this season anywhere else except first in the South Division. That's the way I'm looking at it, right? I know that they're the better team, but that Vegas game does scare me too, because Vegas, they've shown flashes. They have shown flashes.
Yeah.
Whether it be Hundley or Perez.
Yeah. You got to keep that in mind, because that's a potential trap. And you don't want to get caught by any means. Like 6 wins can win the division here for the Houston Roughnecks. 6 wins can be the division win for anybody at this point, because still, even as we sit in here, Houston 4-2, Arlington 3-3, and San Antonio 2-4. They got the big win against Arlington. Those 3 teams right now, still it can be anybody's ball game. That's why it's so important for the Roughnecks to win this week, so that way it can be a separation. I said it again. So that way, going into the next battle after that, because then you got to deal with the 2 Texas teams, right? And I think is Vegas is 9th week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yep, they're 9th week, and then Arlington last week.
Here, okay,
10th week.
So we're getting towards the end of the season now, and now you got to get it done. Got to get it done.
You got to finish the job that you started so well in the first half. You know, we still haven't gotten a win in the second half of this season, and that worries me. It's reminding me a lot of my fantasy football team. But so of
Granted,
course,
just one loss to start, but still, it's just one loss to start the second half. We're not at. There's still a chance, folks, that they'll still get the job done. So you just be patient and just hope for the best when they go against the Battlehawks this Sunday.
It's not time to hit the panic button just yet. It was a tough 2 games against Seattle and DC. We'll see if they can get it done. And folks, watch Cole McDonald. I know I'm really excited to see him. I think he will make my week next week. I can't wait to watch him. So, of course, St. Louis Battlehawks, Houston Roughnecks here back in Houston. I can't wait to finally put my hat back on and
yes, sir. Mr. Roughneck shows up again, man.
Yeah, hopefully celebrate a win once again. My life has gone on too long now. 2 weeks without celebrating a Roughnecks win. We need to get back in it. We do. So make sure y'all show out. Arlington, do you have anything else to say? Anything to the fans?
Man, hey, come out this Sunday. This is a big one. This is a real big game with playoff implications. Like, this is real, man. Like 5-2. This is the difference between 4-3 and 5-2. Okay, because then if heaven forbid they lose, that means we have to go back and watch what happens with the others.
Yes,
make sure that they remain where they are. So the first 2, you'll get an opportunity to see them before the Roughnecks play. So we'll see what happens with them, and we'll see what happens on Sunday. I can't wait. Yeah. I can't wait.
Well, folks, thank you so much for watching. I feel like these past 2 have been somewhat more depressing because we have not been able to report on wins. But hey, it's all part of the process. We love to see it, and we love playoff implications. So make sure you subscribe and like so you don't miss any more Roughnecks content weekly. You know, we got y'all covered, me and A-Train himself. So, folks, thank you so much for watching. And remember, rough 'em up, baby. Go Roughnecks.